Good morning, good afternoon, good Thursday, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Jeroen van Deun, and I'm the product manager for Rocket API. These are the topics I will be covering in this session today. We'll start with a brief overview of the Rocket innovation stack and how it can help to fuel new innovation. Then I will talk about my favorite solution in that innovation stack, application modernization. I'm going to talk about what's new in the most recent releases, followed by a demo. And before we finish, I'll update you on things we're working on for the next release. And we'll end with Q&A if we have time. So let's get started. So this is the Rocket innovation stack. So the innovation stack is all about modernizing, automating, and innovating on platform. So on the topic of replatforming, analyst firm IDC surveyed companies that modernize their IBM Z or IBM I applications in place and companies that moved away from those platforms. They asked questions about reasons for modernizing or replatforming, impacts to business performance and satisfaction, and financial outcomes during and after their projects. It will come as no surprise that I found that businesses that remain on legacy platforms and that take advantage of the software innovations that have been made available for those platforms have an overall better outcome than those that move off them. But we already knew that, right? Legacy powers legendary. With the Rocket Innovation Stack, we help you get more out of the tech you have today so you can innovate for tomorrow. So,
Jeroen, I'm going to stop you right there. I think we might be having a quick technical difficulty. It looks like your screen isn't sharing. Could you give that another shot for us?
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Where's my web? I'm sharing. I should be sharing.
I see your screen now. I don't see your slides quite yet, though.
Well, there's the slide. Okay.
There we go. Now it looks good. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Well,
appreciate it.
We didn't miss much. Okay, so like I said, the Rocket Innovation Stack, right? You see here. So, and we can help you fuel innovation. So how do we do that? So on one hand, we can help you to reduce your cost and optimize your operations with Rocket automation. So we can help with the complex challenges and costs that come with storage, backup, and providing high availability and disaster recovery for your organization using our iCluster solution, for example. You can also leverage that same iCluster to reduce maintenance downtime by using the planned switch functionality it offers. On the other spectrum, these cost savings can help fuel new innovation to increase your IT and business productivity. As mentioned, there has been a shift to avoid replatforming due to the risks and costs. Analysts like IDC, Gartner, and Forrester are clear that modernization will move to the forefront for most CIOs. And we know that modernization is a journey. So we can support that journey as you mature your strategy to our platform, allowing you to build modern web apps, connecting to or extracting data from other systems, or simply providing a terminal emulator to users who want to use one. So this is my favorite entry in the Rocket Innovation Stack, application development. So this slide summarizes the problems we typically solve with our modernization solutions and speaks to the updates we've added over the recent releases. So we revamped the Access and Connectivity Hub in 8.5.1. We added support for deploying classic screen APIs using the hub in 8.5.2. And we made it easier to create APIs on VT applications in 8.5.3. And now we're adding charted information about API transactions per realm and environment. Now, before I show these new features in more detail, I would like to share my view on application modernization with you. So modernization is a journey, but it's also not a one-time exercise. So it's an ongoing process. So things change all the time, and you have to adapt as they do, while minimizing the risk of disruptions and productivity losses as part of your modernization efforts. Now, if I say things change, I'm not necessarily talking about changes in the host application. It could also be your insights that change. Perhaps you discover a faster way of implementing an API by directly calling a program instead of going through the green screens, for example. In that case, the interface of the API does not change, as it shouldn't, because it's an API, but its implementation will. or your company embraces a new UX standard based on a UX design system like IBM's Carbon Design System or Google's Material Design System, and you have to change the look and feel of all the web pages in your application. So those changes should not disrupt day-to-day business. So this diagram shows the blueprint, if you will, of our application modernization DevOps process. So it does not matter which approach you prefer, creating APIs or creating a whole new UX, or both. The process is always the same. So the development process, build and test, is done using the legacy Workbench, and the operating process, deploy and monitor, is done using the Access and Connectivity Hub. So the Access and Connectivity Hub will help minimizing the risk of disruptions. It is easy to set up a test environment and deploy and test there first, and then, if there are no issues, deploy that exact same package to production with a single click. Now, the hub is a free component and brings a lot of value to the table, so please use it to manage your modernization solutions. It makes the whole process so much easier. So this whole DevOps process, by the way, can be automated by ALM solutions, and we actually recommend that. Legacy Web and Rocket API have change management built in, so we can detect that screens have changed or that the application has changed, but that's reactive, so it's after the fact. And an ALM solution will coordinate those changes on both host application and modernization side, so actively solving the bimodal IT challenge by managing these changes in both environments. So changes to the host application and the required changes on the modernization side will be promoted through the different stages together or rolled back together if needed, right? And that's the optimal solution. So let's talk about the release highlights then. So since the previous webinar in June, we released Rocket API 8.5.3, and we're about to release Rocket API 8.5.4 next week, I think. And there's a lot of value in those releases, but in the interest of time, I will only mention the highlights. So for the full details of every release, please see the release notes on docs.rocketsoftware.com. So the first thing I would like to highlight, and we start real low level today, are the security enhancements we have done in recent releases. So normally I would not mention those, but I just want to make sure everyone is aware that we introduce these type of enhancements with every release. I put some recent enhancements on this slide to give you an idea of what the impact of those changes is. So for the first one, in previous versions of the API gateway, the API response header, so if you invoke a REST API, the response will have a response header that would always contain the Jetty server version. And this gives a potential attacker detailed information that can be used to target specific weaknesses or vulnerabilities in that version of Jetty. So obviously, this is now disabled by default. We also disabled support for the HTTP trace method. So in HTTP, you have several methods. You have get and post and delete. And one of them is trace, but that is actually actively being used for cross-site tracing. So we disabled that as well. For the third one, we added the strict transport security header to the responses. So every Microflow now returns that strict transport security header. That means that the first time an API is accessed using HTTPS and it returns this strict transport security header, the browser will record this information so that future attempts to access that API using HTTP will automatically use HTTPS instead. And finally, we upgraded PuTTY, and I guess this really only applies to host connectors and classic screen API projects. But the point is that vulnerabilities are fixed in third-party libraries too. So the release notes would just mention, upgraded this library to a new version, just like it says on the slide here. So it might not be obvious that security fixes were applied there as well. Like said, normally these would just be entries in the release notes, and I'm calling them out here to raise awareness. So please try to keep up with releases or to stay current, because some of those changes might not sound that important, but they will show up in security scans. So we did some more improvements under the hood though. Another thing which might not be obvious immediately is that we improved the connectivity of the components with the Access and Connectivity Hub. So if you run the hub in the cloud and the API components on-premise, and then it could be challenging because of the two-way REST communication between those components, as it requires opening ports in the firewall on-prem for the incoming traffic, which is not desirable. So we solved that by introducing WebSockets for the communication. So there's no need to open ports on the firewall anymore for inbound traffic, as the components on-prem will initiate the HTTP connection to the hub, which will be automatically upgraded to a WebSocket connection. Now, we had WebSocket support before, but some functionality in the hub still relied on those REST interfaces, but no longer. So this dedicated two-way communication channel offers lots of advantages. So we now have real-time status updates of the components in the hub, so whether an engine is online or offline, so we don't have to pull that. And we made sure that those changes are immediately reflected on the hub dashboard. So what this means is that the engine will actively push its status to the hub, and the hub will use server-side events to actively push that status to the browser. Long story short, there's no need to refresh the browser anymore to see the current status of an engine. Another benefit is fail-safe deployment. If deployment of API libraries fail, or you specify an HTTP manager port which is not available, let's say it's in use, then you can still access that API gateway thanks to that dedicated connection and resolve that issue. Right? And the engines will also check whether the deployed version of the API library, is correct. If it's not, there's a package mismatch because somebody updated the deployment manually without using the hub, and then the mismatch will be reported in hub as well, all using this dedicated communication line. Another benefit is that the log files and support packages can now also be retrieved using this new connection. So if you want to see the troubleshoot log or support package for a gateway host connector, then you don't need the LMC to do that. You can do that from the hub because the authentication is managed by the hub. So no username and password, just download from the hub itself. So there's a lot of benefits because of this improved connectivity. Okay, so going from low to a medium level of technicalities, I guess. Another thing we did is we improved the Microflow recorder for VT applications. As you might know, VT applications can be challenging to automate because of their character-based nature. Unlike screen-based protocols, it's hard to determine when the host application is ready to receive input, for example. So that's why we now automatically add the wait for cursor and field function before the data is entered on the screen, right? So yeah, it's the same pattern we follow. So here we have a wait for screen for login with a certain sync level, and then we check, and then we continue, and we apply the same pattern when entering data. So we wait for the cursor and field for a certain time, then we check where the cursor is there, and then we actually put in the data. And because we add that automatically, that not only accelerates the recording of the actual Microflow itself, because you don't have to insert those statements yourself, but it also makes the execution of that Microflow a lot more reliable. But there's more value in this Microflow example, because what's highlighted here is a function that executes a handle password script just before the var in password. Right, so before the user supplied variable password is put on the password field, this function is called. So what's going on here? So as you know, the current screen projects use JavaScript for scripting, as opposed to the classic screen projects that use SQL script, and we added some powerful functionality to the JavaScript engine. Okay, so maybe I lied a bit, and this is not medium but low level, as it gets a little bit technical from here. But as you can see, I have two files in my project. One is called encryption, and one is called handle password. So an handle password is the file that's called by the function in the Microflow. And encryption is a generic file that has common encryption and decryption functionality. So what you want to do is to reuse that encryption file in all your Microflows, and that's exactly what you can do now using the require keyword. Right? So with require, you can import JavaScript files, enabling you to create that, repository with common functionality. So here you see require encryption lib, and then some functionality from that library is used. But there's another announcement in this example. The new built-in Microflow context object enables you to work with the Microflow's input and output variables. So in this example, the value of the password that was actually passed in by the user is decrypted using that library I just required. So here's the var in password, and it's decrypted to the decrypted password. And then the passed in value is actually replaced by the decrypted password. So the benefit of this approach is that any other Microflow stage that will also use this var in password will also use this decrypted value as well. So it is easy to work, well, relatively easy to work with this Microflow context object, as it will show you which options are available using code completion, right? You can see the functions that are available here. And while on the topic of customizing the Microflow, I just want to remind you of another built-in variable that has been around for a while, which is the host session object. Right? So the host session object allows you to work with the host session, what's in the name. So you can get the screen size, you can get data from the screen, you can put data on the screen. And so you can do a lot of powerful stuff. And with these two objects, the sky really is the limit. So you could code the whole Microflow implementation yourself, if that is what you like. Right? Notifications in the hub then. So we introduced a way to customize the email notifications the hub sends out when a component comes online or goes offline, or in case of legacy web, any license related notifications. So these email templates are stored on disk in timely format, which is very similar to HTML. So the timely format is very well documented, and by opening up these templates like this, there's no limit what you can do to customize these templates to your liking. So you can just change the file or the message in here, or you can add logos or change the whole format to match your company's branding, for example. Okay, let's switch gears to the management and deployment side of the house. So no more low-level stuff, I promise. In the last webinar in June, we said we were working on API charts and troubleshooting, right? So the access and the connectivity hub will now show the transaction history of its connected API gateways in a filterable list. So an administrator can now inspect what transactions were executed on what gateway and with what response time without turning to the gateway's log file. And the dashboard, which you see here, has been expanded to include charted information about those API transactions. So you can see those per realm and per environment. For troubleshooting, you can now view and download the logs of the hub itself without having to access the application server. Right, so you can see that in the screenshot as well. So this is really a file on disk, and you can just download that. And because of the new WebSocket communication, like I mentioned, you can also see the log file for a host connector, and you can access the troubleshoot log and the support package with one click of a button without having to use the LMC, all from the hub interface. We added more filter options, so filter options to all the lists we have in the hub today, and it's easier to filter on the various columns. And what you'll see is that because those filters are actually added to the URL, you can actually bookmark that, so you have deep link support. Right, so if you're happy with a particular view, how you slice and dice the data, you can bookmark that and then jump straight back in. And we also, added help here, although that's not really necessary because I think it's pretty straightforward. And then this was requested a lot, deployment feedback. In the previous versions of the API gateway or of the hub, if you would deploy to an engine, an API library, there would be no feedback, how far that deployment was going, how it was going, whether it succeeded or failed. So now we've added this new progress indicator, which is visible on the console page where all the engines are listed, and it will show the progress of the deployment and whether it's succeeded or not. Right, so you have 3 states. It's either pending, so that means that the hub is loading the package into memory. It can be deploying, which means the engine is downloading the new package, or processing, which means that the engine has downloaded the package and is restarting with a new package. So if the deployment fails for some reason, then you should be able to see that on this page as well. Or, like I said, if there's a mismatch because somebody deployed another package without using the hub, that will be mentioned, reported here as well. And then we did tons of other smaller UX improvements. Think of, like I said, the filtering. If you with the filtering, if you create a query that takes a very long time, a pop-up will appear and you can cancel the filter requests, or you can now edit realms and environments from the dashboard and more stuff like that. But I think I'll just show you in a quick demo. So let me start the hub. So I have the hub running here on my Mac on a virtual machine. If I log in here, and you can see, this is so just like for the web part, so this is the web view with this chart. We also have this chart now for Rocket API. Well, let me quickly create some real estate because I think it will be hard to see on the webinar. So I'm going to hide the web view for now. So go back. Now I only have the API components. So they used to be on the bottom here. So we moved them to the left. And here's the chart with all the API invocations to all the engines that are aggregated in this view. And I can drill down to a specific department. And here I can see there's a production and a development environment that had some API invocations. So if I drill down to production, I can see how many API invocations there were. I can drill down, on day, month, year, all that good stuff. What was most interesting, there's also this recent activity chart on the dashboard. So I can immediately see which failed or which succeeded. So if I click on succeeded, for instance, it takes me to this new API transactions view, right? There's a new view and it has its own menu item here. So this means I can see which APIs were invoked for this gateway running in this realm and environment, and how long the actual invocation took. You can see because I drilled down from the dashboard, there are already some filters that are being applied. So show me everything that was a success, everything that was invoked in the last 24 hours for this realm and environment. And I can extend that filter, right? There are some different APIs here. So I can say, well, show me all the transactions that match get customer details, and show me everything that was, I don't know, took more than 130 milliseconds or something like that. So you can slice and dice that, and as you can see, it's added to the URL. So I can save that URL and bookmark that, and I get this view right away. So if I go back to the dashboard and I start pulling down again, so to the support department, you see this edit button. So here I can edit the properties of this realm, which I haven't got any properties in here, but here I could override properties that would apply to all the environments in this realm. And if I drill down into an environment, then indeed I can see that there are some properties which are overridden. So all the web engines in this production environment for the support department realm will connect to this specific LPAR, and for the API gateways that are running here. So they will all use this HTTP manager port. So like I said, if the port is in use or something goes amiss with these properties, that's fine, because the WebSocket communication will make sure that I can recover. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the deployment then. Let's deploy an API library real quick. So I have 3 gateways running here. One of them is actually a fake gateway, which is Phoenix. This is an internal tool that's used by development, and that will actually delay the deployment, because the deployment can be really fast and then you don't see the cool progress bar. So if I say I'm going to deploy this API library to all these gateways, and I press deploy, then you can see that the progress bar, it's processing, and you can see that it's building up, which is really nice. What I'm going to do now, this is the fake one. I'm going to kill this one quick to show you that we also handle the errors. So these are restarting. So these are the 2 gateways you see here. They're restarting. So they come up and they're running. So the package is deployed there. But the Phoenix one is still offline. And if I click on the feelings one, it will tell me the reason. It says, well, we tried to deploy this API deployment, version 106, it failed at 58% with this error, right? And I can correct that. So if I would start that mock engine again, that fake engine again, right, and it's come up again, it's running again, then I can actually say, well, I'm going to reset that. So reset to vanilla, there's nothing deployed there, and now I can redeploy. So I can still access that engine even if the deployment went south. Okay, so let me quickly deploy an engine there then, or an API library. Just to show that it's working. So, now it's deploying, and I can do something else, right? I can go somewhere else, and if I come back, it will show me the deployment progress. All right, so I think that concludes the quick demo. Like I said, I'm not going to show you the low-level things. So what's coming next then, right? So I know what's coming next. The first thing you'll see is the disclaimer slide. So we always have to show this, right? If you talk about roadmap commitments. So, but yeah, this roadmap, the next slide after this one is for informational purposes only. It's not a commitment. It represents our current intention of our development efforts. As market conditions on dear customer, your requirements change, then we reserve the right to change or cancel these items. So what are we working on? So the Access and Connectivity Hub UX, the user experience, just like the small enhancements you saw in the demo, and we did lots more, which I didn't call out. But also, and I also called this out in the June webinar, we're also working on getting these insights into how users are using the applications. And the good news is that we're actually making good progress on that. And we're starting a beta program in the first quarter of next year, right? The workflow discovery. So if you'd like to be part of that program, if you would like to be an early adopter, then please send me an email, and I'll reach out to you and provide you with more details. And with that, I think, I'm not sure if we have time left. We can take some questions, I guess, CJ.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeroen. Yeah, we have just a minute left, so I think we can get one question in anyway. So let's see here. We do have one that has come in. All right. Is the Microflow context object only available in VT projects?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand where that question comes from, because I started with the VT enhancements. But so any screen API project, can use that Microflow context object, right? So that's not VT specific. You can also use it for a 50/50 IBMI or a mainframe project. Yeah. Sorry for the confusion.
No, that's great. Thank you for clarifying. That's perfect. All right, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions, but I do want to remind folks that we'll be sending out the recording for this, so please keep an eye on that as well as the slides. And when we end this session, a survey should pop up. If you'd take a minute and provide your feedback, we'd really appreciate that. It's always good to hear what's working and what's not, so we can continue to improve and provide the best possible sessions for you in the future. With that, I thank everyone for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.